name's Rex. She'll call me Captain.
What if I told you that the Republic was now under the control of the Dark Lord of the Sith?
The shroud of the dark side has fallen.
I'm heavy.
Begun. The Clone War has.
You're listening to The World Between Worlds, a Star Wars podcast where we're marathoning all of Star Wars, leading right into Episode 9. This is the Season 3 finale of the Clone Wars, and Ahsoka is captured by Trandoshan hunters and is set loose on a planet to be hunted for sport. There's lots of action. Chewbacca's here, and we're here to talk about it. My name is Yates.
I'm Jessica.
Han Solo, Captain of the Millennium Falcon.
Stop.
I'm Keats.
You are not Han Solo. Han Solo wasn't in this episode.
Close enough.
We're here to talk about Season 3, Episode 21, Padawan Lost, and Episode 22, Wookiee Hunt.
How was your week, Yates?
We're recording this during Thanksgiving week, but it's probably not going to go up till way after that.
Yeah, it's like 2 weeks.
That being said, it's pretty good. We're off work, which means I finally can spend all day working on this podcast. I can't wait. I've been waiting for this vacation for so long to just sit at the computer and edit.
Yay. The time is finally here.
I'm just glad you're having a good time.
Thank you. Jessica, you're here this week.
Hells yeah, brother.
We a few weeks ago we spoke to some random literary professor that just came in, and what was that all about?
She sounds hot. Was
Nice.
she? No, just kidding. Don't answer that.
Nice.
I love literature professors.
A whole Beethoven orchestra just like followed her around and played. It was so cool.
This is like a fun little arc. Only 2 episodes, which we never like get the chance to do. Normally we're like buffing up on like 5 episodes. Sigh of relief. 2 episodes. Very straightforward story, but fun with our main character. You know, we get to spend some one-on-one time with Ahsoka again, which is always nice.
Do you prefer like a traditional 3-episode structure, or do you prefer a 2-week?
This was fine.
You could tell that it was a season finale.
There's like a sense of closure towards the end.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, that felt good too. As like, and I liked that the episode for a season finale normally it's like gigantic battle or something or you know whatever, but this was sort of like a side story, sort of a little more anecdotal and a little, you know, not related to the war. It starts off like that, you know, war, battle droids, explosions, and then
It was more like personal, like character driven.
yeah, I liked that a lot.
Yeah, side story sounds a little harsh. It's a lot more wholesome.
To forego being super structured with this episode because nothing too crazy happens in terms of plot. It's a very straightforward story. You know, I'll just say, as I had said, that Ahsoka was, you know, taken by these Trandoshan hunters. And the majority of the story is Ahsoka working with this team of younglings who have already been on this planet for a while.
We were taken by those foul lizards for their amusement, to be hunted, killed, and mounted on their wall as trophies.
We've been stuck here for more rotations than we can count. No one has come for us. I doubt anyone is still looking.
Chew on that, Padawan. Then rest. You'll need your strength.
How can they escape? How can they survive in this environment? Meanwhile, Anakin is struggling with what to do to try and get Ahsoka back. And Chewbacca shows up as another one of the people that has been brought there to be hunted. You know, together they all work together to try and overthrow the Trandoshans. And you know, that's it. It's pretty straightforward. But there's a lot at stake for all our characters, Ahsoka especially, and there are some big moments in this episode. Jessica, before we began, you noted how there was a sort of parallel in terms of Ahsoka and Anakin in terms of how they have to deal with what is essentially a story about abandonment. Like, Ahsoka is captured, and she doesn't know where Anakin is. She doesn't know where Plo Koon is. She doesn't know where the rest of the people are. That could potentially, help her out of this situation. She's by herself. And all the other younglings are like, we've been left here to die. We've been abandoned. No one's going to be coming for us. And meanwhile, Anakin is sort of processing his position in this, which is, he's the one that he feels like he's abandoned Ahsoka.
Yeah, like, I think that when she gets there, the Jedi Younglings who have been there for a while, they're pretty bitter. I think one of them says, like, chew on this, like, we have been completely left behind and forgotten about. And Ahsoka's like, well, that's not going to happen to me because my master is different. Like, he isn't the typical Jedi who would just be like, pretty much as soon as you lose someone, they're just like, well, non-attachment.
Skywalker, our mission here is finished. We must return to Coruscant.
I am not abandoning her.
Your emotions are clouding your judgment.
I will not leave her fate up to others.
It's time to go.
They, like, let go of people so easily. It's like, It's not just non-attachment. It's like, almost seems like
It's like that one
aggressively non-attachment.
It's a lot like that episode of the Geonosis arc where Luminara is like so easily about to let go of her apprentice when she thinks that she's dead. Where they're just like so easily gonna throw him out.
Exactly. And I think that Anakin like feels that from the other Jedi, and that's really hard for him because like abandonment is something that like you can see him like freak out about it. Like whenever he has to leave someone behind, that's like unacceptable to him.
Yeah, for
but
sure.
Even just the fact that he's like that, and like Ahsoka is his Padawan, like it does make her different than the other like Jedi Younglings, because she then has the strength to be like, absolutely not. My master would never forgive me if I like gave up, and like just like the other episode with that you were just talking about, the Geonosis episode. Like, I think she kind of thought that Anakin would step in and like do half of the work, and then she would do half of the work, and then like they would get her out of it together. Like in this episode, she did all of the work, but it was because of the fact that she was kind of raised in this like alternative way within the Jedi community.
Like that one episode from the Geonosis arc where Ahsoka has that disease infection that she has to try and find the cure for, and that's what Anakin ends up doing to connect the dots so that they have to work together to stop the infection.
Oh my god.
Geonosis? What, are they ripping off their own stuff now?
I feel like they kind of are.
Yeah, it's not the first time it's happened. Like, definitely season 1, like, I remember, I forget which one.
It's the same episode over and over again.
Yeah, all the emotion, like, in terms of, like, the setting and everything, things would change, but, like, the same, like, people would learn the same lessons, like, over again, like, 3 or 4 times.
No, I heard that in this episode, too, where one of the kids is like, we lost hope, but then you came along, and I feel like that's, like, every episode, someone loses hope and then gets it back.
It's definitely, there are themes that they keep returning to, and there are episodes that handle them a lot better than others, but
they keep showing in different ways, like how Anakin's way of doing things is like often the right way of doing things,
or a right way of doing things.
Yeah, or like it
valid,
provides the solution.
Like, it's valid. Like, we sympathize with.
It's Anakin. Valid in the context of war, which they're not equipped for.
Exactly. It's just all like there's like multiple theses going on. It's like Anakin's way is like a good way of doing things, but also within the context of war, and like what is the Jedi?
This was discussed heavily in the last arc.
Are they peacekeepers? Are they generals?
It's kind of like every time Anakin makes sort of like a morally questionable decision in favor of the war, it's like he's at a crossroads. Like, which way do I go? And yeah, sometimes like going the dark route, that's going to keep him alive and keep his friends alive. But, it's like every time he has to make a decision like that, he has to, go further and further in one direction. By the time of Revenge of the Sith, he looks around, he looks behind him, and he just sees how far he's gone. And, like, maybe this is the only direction I can go anymore. I mean, one thing of note that really sets this episode apart is the format of this episode. I mean, Ahsoka is being hunted feels very classic sci-fi. It also feels very much in the spirit of the old short story, The Most Dangerous Game, where which is sort of like, in my opinion, I think that sort of established this trope that writers will return to, like in Star Trek or any story. Really the idea of
Star Trek and everything else.
Star Trek and then everything else. You got that absolutely right. I feel like the Twilight Zone might have done a riff on that as well. It's the idea of like hunting people or the Predator. That's another great example. It's like that's like The Most Dangerous Game basically, but it's a sci-fi version of that.
Well, I think because in a way we all feel a little like it's like that's a common trope even if in our own language of like dog eat dog world.
Sure.
Like that's supposed to be like evolution or something, even though that's not how evolution works.
Quote unquote
like,
social Darwinism.
Right,
like,
exactly. It's like the strong will hunt the weak.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like
there's always a bigger fish.
I feel like that sort of class criticism is like even perhaps something that's part of the subtext of The Most Dangerous Game, because the central conceit of The Most Dangerous Game, whereas here they're essentially in the Clone Wars these people that are dealing in basically human trafficking or whatever for the purposes of big game hunting. It seems to be more cultural, like coming from like their cultural heritage or whatever. But in Most Dangerous Game, it could be sort of like commentary on class, just because it's like some rich aristocrat who's just so bored, like all I can do is just kill poor people like for fun.
Sure.
I mean, the same could apply to here. I mean, the same could apply to this though, where maybe that species views humans as or whatever Ahsoka is and humans to be like inferior species wise, just like all around.
I feel like
they don't drop that hint, but it's possible.
They could have done more with that species. I mean, I know that it's like they only have a certain amount of time and it's like a kids show, and like they were just kind of like a foil, like, and that was like their whole thing was just like being like hateable and being like lizard monsters, and like the really only thing that you ever heard them say was like, "You killed my son!"
I love
and like that
moment.
One guy was so like, "Oh my god, my son!"
We didn't even talk about that fire scene. That fire scene was crazy.
What fire scene?
Like when they're in their warrior room and they like have that fire burning.
That's what made me think that they were like. It made me think they were like in the KKK. Like the fact that they were just burning. I don't know. They have a giant fire pit that they scream at and
they have like bodies hanging on the wall of races that they deem inferior.
Kind of like Texas Chainsaw Massacre too. Like if they have all these corpses and this whole family.
Or maybe this
let's add more.
Maybe this race is just anti-furry.
The scalies and the furries,
it's a.
I feel like usually I don't see Ahsoka as being that small. But then when they put like all of the younglings together, it was like when they were all like fighting together, they were like all so like tiny.
Yeah,
and
they're
like...
babbies. Ahsoka's like 15 maybe, I think. She's not that old.
So what did you guys think about those characters?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I thought the dynamic was really interesting between her and the main girl, Khalifa, who was kind of like a reflection of what could be Ahsoka if she doesn't stay headstrong.
I thought they were okay. I liked Khalifa, the main character. The main leader character, and when she died, I was pretty bummed.
I like how they all like looked kind of fucked up.
Yeah, you could tell they'd been there for a while.
Especially Khalifa, like her. I really liked her character too, and like her face. Like if you like just looked at her face, it's like damn, like they're strung out.
Yeah, definitely.
They're super strung out.
The fact that everyone was a youngling kind of just reminded me of Lord of the Flies. They're all trapped on this island together. A la Jurassic Park 3, which came before Lord of the Flies.
Alan!
Yates doesn't like that movie. I mean, that's pretty much the only parallel, but that's like the whole framing device of that story, so.
But I feel like Lord of the Flies is a little bit different, because that one is all about how...
That's very cynical.
Yeah, like, children, like, work against each other, and, like, it's kind of just about how we're screwed, like, as a species, because if you, like, divorce children from their social context, like, they'll still be, like, evil little bastards, and, like... Poor Piggy. Oh,
poor
God. I hated that. But, like, in this one, they, like, all work together and, like, save themselves.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying I think Jurassic Park 3 is a lot
Oh my
more.
God.
It's a lot more of a fair parallel because Lord of the Flies has like not that much direct parallelness to it. It's just the kids and an island. But Jurassic Park 3 is an island. It's dinosaurs. It's being hunted. It's all those things.
It's all those things.
I rest my case.
I'm just gonna keep bringing it up so you can't edit it out.
It's okay. We'll keep it in. God damn it.
But the animation was cool.
Yeah,
And,
the lighting
the
was-
island was cool.
Yeah, it looked great. You bought it. Also,
There's that one moment of all the droids coming out of their base with like all the red behind them. It was so pretty.
Well, yeah, the lighting effects in general were good, but the jungle I thought was very sort of like credible and cool. The atmosphere and like the tone of it was like very recognizable, but it was also like super alien. Like you look at it long enough, and there's like all this weird alien stuff
Yeah,
on
you're
it.
right. You're right.
Yeah,
This was another like D&D episode where it's like
I was thinking that.
it was like, oh, we're like placed somewhere, and like, what do we do? Like, let's go to the bar.
Yeah,
like, let's ask around.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely very much felt that way.
Which is good for kids to like see the problem solving and stuff.
Yeah, I agree. Ahsoka's really, and they say as much, that Ahsoka is the person that they really need in order to lead them. And we've seen Ahsoka kind of in...
Well,
have we seen Ahsoka in like a teaching role before?
She was literally a teacher in the follow-up
yeah.
Mandalore arc. Ahsoka's been a teacher for a while.
Yeah, I forgot about that episode. That's right. So yeah, Ahsoka has been in that role
You
before.
definitely are seeing her mature.
Yeah, I mean, she's like such a...
She's a great character.
Yeah. One thing we talked about in the Citadel arc that you missed, Jessica, is just like I feel like the character dynamics now are very concrete. Like I feel like I know how Ahsoka is different from Anakin and Obi-Wan, you know, and she really feels like a really unique and full person at this point.
It's kind of like as if we were Ahsoka almost. It's like, what would we do if we were like that intimate with Anakin? Like, how would we cope with that? Because he's the chosen one. He's so powerful. He's so different. But on the other hand, like, that's something I loved in the Mortis arc. Was like her vision of herself.
There is a wildness to you, young one. Seeds of the dark side planted by your master. Do you feel it?
No. He is like no other Jedi. Passionate, impulsive, but I trust him with my life.
There are many contradictions in you. And in him.
It's kind of like this like secret monologue she's having of like, is this okay?
Yeah.
Like,
What is my future? What can I be?
Do you think she's scared of Anakin a little bit?
I think she is.
Just because she's a lot better at dealing with attachment than you would imagine. With like her whole like relationship with Anakin, you would think that she would be just as worried as Anakin was. But because like I feel like there's like this tiny seed of fear from Anakin that it's possible.
Yeah.
So what's possible?
I just think that it's possible that she's afraid of Anakin. That's why she's like so good at dealing with the attachment with Anakin.
I definitely think they have like a weird relationship. Like, and I think they all know it's weird, but they're just so like dependent on each other, and they also feel like the specialness of what they are, that it's kind of like this like code of silence. It's like, you know, when you're like doing something wrong and you know that it's wrong, but like you also kind of like it, and you're like, I know I'm gonna get in trouble for this.
Taboo.
Yeah, like that's the sense I get from their like little clique.
Like Anakin with killing. He knows it's bad, but he loves to do it.
Well, I feel like Anakin is the real, like, aggressor, almost. Like, I think Obi-Wan and Ahsoka are kind of like, how do I react to this?
Yeah,
like,
they don't have, like, a good
Anakin's
frame of reference. So.
Anakin's, like, taking advantage of the whole peacekeeper contradiction and just, like, using it as an excuse to kill.
So this is something I wanted to talk about, was, like, with Khalifa, right? Wiz Khalifa.
Say that 5 times fast and you'll get Wiz Khalifa.
Like, you know, she's like a very likable character and stuff, but we see how she like kills that like Jurassic Park lizard.
Khalifa! Don't kill him out of hatred. It's not the Jedi way.
And I was kind of like surprised to hear her say that, because I feel like we see like a lot. We're so saturated with like killing and like them being on the run and like warfare and everything like that. But I felt like that was almost the writers like illustrating to us how like even like good innocent people, if they're constantly like running for their lives and like they feel under threat and they're in this like unique like battle situation, they will inevitably like turn and start like,
I mean, we were saying that the whole time with
straying.
Ahsoka. Like the first 2 seasons was like she was, you know, being exposed too much to the war and was turning her like sort of like, don't
her
want to
moral
say,
compass.
yeah, her moral compass was you know, damaged. Like she didn't know, she didn't have good enough context to understand, you know, all the violence that was going on around her.
And that's why I was like surprised to even hear her say that, because it's like, when do you ever hear anybody saying something like that within the show?
Yeah, not as often as you would hope. She killed someone in the last arc.
I was thinking about that the whole time, but I didn't want to bring it up.
I mean, I think that this is kind of an example of like tactics and like self-defense or your principles. And like that, I feel like that's like a very fuzzy line, you know, because when you're in that kind of situation where your life is constantly under threat, which is what they are, like on that little island with like most dangerous game or whatever, wouldn't it be better to just like kill them as soon as you like get an opportunity? Because that's like gonna help you in the long run to have less of them.
Yeah.
But then would you even be a Jedi?
It's kind of like, because she's on her own, like she really has to solidify like her approach. She doesn't have Anakin to sort of like lie back on, or like, and it's not like some complicated plot as was the case in Citadel, where you know, all these things need to line up perfectly, otherwise everything and all these sacrifices would have been in vain. Instead, it's just Ahsoka, her new friends, and like the struggle to survive. And you know, now that she is in the leadership position, and that the success and the lives of these kids are, you know, more or less in her hands, she has to really consider what she really believes. And then it's kind of like, I like the idea that, you know, in this high stress scenario where her life is on the line, like the only way she can survive this is being sort of really truthful and earnest to herself. Like if she betrayed her ideals, she wouldn't have made it, you know?
Who,
kind of like
Ahsoka?
Ahsoka, the strength of her convictions and solidifying her convictions. And I'm talking more at like a meta level, like just in terms of mythological storytelling. Like if this is Ahsoka's big moment to prove herself on her own, she needs to exhibit that she has beliefs and that she's gonna actualize them.
I think that they also like she wouldn't have had the same clout if she didn't do that, because it was like right after she did that Khalifa was like, you reminded us who we are.
You mean like she wouldn't have the same worth of leadership?
Yeah, like I feel like that kind of like things pivoted after that moment to like then they started listening.
There's also a great moment between the children in Ahsoka where she's like basically observing how they've been living, and she's like, Khalifa is basically like, we're like no longer Jedi anymore.
We could have stopped them.
No, Ahsoka. We are not saviors here. Here, we are survivors. If they had spotted us, we'd be dead now.
We'll never get out of here if we just keep hiding. We have to act.
They've basically given up all their ideals just to survive. And so Ahsoka like has to come to terms with that.
Yeah, and also worth noting is that they're younglings. They don't have an assigned master, so like they're like still like, you know, in grade school basically, and Ahsoka's like a few years their elder and has more experience. So like they also just might have literally not been equipped. They're probably better fighters now than they were when they landed there.
Well, that was another thing though of like hiding versus fighting.
Sure, yeah.
Because they were like fighting for their lives, but they were also just kind of like hiding. Like they were just like staying alive just for the sake of it. But they had like no plan to get off.
But they also talk about like past trauma, like that there were other people that they've tried this before, and everyone died, and they're the only people left.
True. So I guess they just like didn't have the leadership to like be able to do it.
Although I did love the story, I couldn't help but think of like Peter Pan with like the Island of Misfits, and how if like the children on this island were framed to be like outcasts and and Ahsoka was kind of like a fish out of water being thrown into that family or that group of younglings. Like, what if instead of like being helpless and just like deprived of hope, what if they were instead like kind of bonded together by this lack of hope and turn into like this makeshift family? They're like, what's the word when a person is like justifying somebody else's terrible actions? It's like a syndrome.
Stockholm
syndrome. Yeah, like if they're
that could have been interesting.
Like if they're all under Stockholm syndrome and Ahsoka has to like try and help them realize what's wrong with them.
That would have been interesting. That feels like it would have been a different episode. But
that's what I'm saying.
But it feels like
I think that would have been a better episode.
There would have been more to talk. There would have been more to it because this was very straightforward, and that adds like another dimension that would have been interesting.
I think if they did an episode like that too, that would also echo like what Ahsoka is kind of like a little Stockholm syndrome-y.
Yeah,
with Anakin. That's
true.
Yeah, because I think that's a major theme in Ahsoka's entire arc as a person. So I feel like her expressing that through other people is like the natural way of storytelling.
She's like the meme of like the dog in the burning room. It's like, this is fine.
This is fine.
Yeah. I just think the threat for this episode doesn't really match up with that because, like, you know, in order to feel like the mortal threat against Ahsoka, like, there needs to be stakes. And even though these villains were throwaway villains, like, even though I know Ahsoka's going to make it out at the end so that there's a rest of the show, I did feel like the threat was like credible because Khalifa died so quickly and because the environment was so extreme. So I feel like it would be hard to have that still going. At the same time have the kids.
I'm not saying like
to stay there.
Keats is usually using his imagination.
I'm not saying like just make the simple change and then everything can like remain the same and it's a better episode. I'm just saying like work around the episode, change a few bits here and there, and it could become a more centralized and focused episode to Ahsoka's character.
Chewbacca.
Why? Just why?
Because he returns.
What is that?
It's a Wookiee.
So yeah, Ahsoka met Chewbacca.
Yeah,
that was weird. I don't like stuff like. I feel like they should be more thoughtful when it comes to like stuff like that. Isn't that part of Chewbacca's origin story as well? Is that he's like, they do it in Solo as well, where he's like this like slave that's like supposed to just fight and stuff.
Yeah, definitely with Solo out now, it kind of seems like redundant, like the idea of him being captured by, you know, essentially these slavers. But
are like Wookiees like frowned upon in general society?
I think that's a good question. I would go so far as to say yes. Like the concept of primitivism, like, you know, there's like, oh, those Wookiees, like they live out in the outer rim and you know, we don't have to worry too much about them.
But they're badass.
The Jedi, they are badass, and the Jedi know that it's a system we cannot afford to lose.
He's right.
Yeah, like they're a warrior colony, right?
I don't think Wookiees are warriors at all. Like they will fight and they're skilled warriors, but I think they live like in harmony with nature.
I think that they're
just anarcho-syndicalists.
Yeah, they just have like they're just sweet. Like honestly, that's probably the one race I would want to belong to.
That's a good point. Yeah, Wookiees have a good setup overall.
Like they're like a stuffed animal race, right? It's like they're like, I feel like the stuffed animal races in Star Wars are like the races that are just like, they're furry and like their planet has like nature on it and like they're anarcho-syndicalists, but like they're also like they're loyal as fuck.
That's
they're
true.
Loyal and
if
like,
anything, that's sort of
they're always on the side of the good.
They are always on the side of the good, and that's one thing I like. Loyalty is probably the biggest like old world concept. That's like, you know, if you're like, we are a culture of like loyalty, like that's probably the only thing in that makes me think of that.
Imagine like post Return of the Jedi, Chewbacca becomes like a mayor or a governor or a senator. Like
you never have to like convince like the Wookiees to like be on the light side.
Yeah, they just
like they're just already there. Mm-hmm. And I totally think he should be a senator.
No, I'm just saying, like, that would be a hilarious visual of him giving a large speech, but you can't understand a word he's saying. Nor can the crowd, probably.
Yeah.
They get, like, a translator.
Yeah, our first look at Wookiees, I liked it. I didn't love it, but I liked seeing the Wookiees all work together at the end.
It seemed kind of random.
It did seem random, but I liked it. I thought it was a good portrayal of like how friendly a Wookiee can be. Like Ahsoka and him get along pretty well.
Oh yeah, and they're the ones that ultimately save them at the end because Ahsoka they can't.
They do.
Yeah, because Chewie makes the
satellite
ET
dish.
phone home.
Yeah. Oh my god.
It was just like ET. He just makes from spare parts. He makes this satellite.
Another
that
Steven
beams
Spielberg
to-
connection.
I think that there's a little bit of foreshadowing of like how when it's the Rebel Alliance, how it's the kind of like that alliance building that's like more kind of like loose and like it's not alliance building through Senate. It's like alliance building through like fighting on the ground.
Yeah.
And my opinion on the Wookiees was I liked the Wookiees, but I didn't like the fact that it was Chewbacca.
Sure. Yeah. I think that's totally fair.
Because it's just like why? Like that just felt so like
It's definitely like
random.
It's definitely random.
It's fan service, hands
fan
down.
service.
Yeah,
There's
it
no
kind of
reason.
just was like, oh well, this is the last episode.
If it was
so-
like Chewbacca, like the infamous Chewbacca, like if he had like some sort of reputation for why they would be capturing him,
I'd much rather get to know Chewbacca the warrior on Kashyyyk.
yeah, like if they went to Kashyyyk and they
That's what I like about Chewbacca's backstory is like the idea that they're like a proud culture and that they're like
they plan on doing that.
Do something on their planet and then bring him in.
There's like this scrapped idea that they had for future episodes where they went to Kashyyyk and they saw like Wookiees would like communicate with trees. And there's like this really interesting concept.
Like Ents.
Like ants?
Ents and Lord of the Rings. The Ents. Those are the trees that talk.
Oh, no, not like literally communicate, but like spiritually they would communicate.
Oh,
like Avatar.
What?
Like
like Avatar the
there's
movie.
The blue people. There's like the giant tree.
Yeah. Kind of, yeah.
That they are all connected to somehow.
Yeah.
Does it conflict with Chewbacca's like origin story thing in Solo?
No, because we're gonna see him again before Solo, and we'll.
Oh, what? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
You'll find out.
Yates keeps looking at me like I know, but I don't. So I'm trying to like figure it out for him.
It's okay. We don't need to dwell on it.
I won't.
Okay. So the Wookiees and the Younglings successfully overthrow the Trandoshans. I guess they killed every single person on that ship, and Ahsoka is saved. And she gets help from the Wookiees, but everything was set in motion by her. She's the one that decides to save Chewie. She's the one that goes for Chewie's plan. She's the one that tells Chewie, hey, you should fight with us, even though it might not be the best idea.
I liked Yoda's little smile.
I should have paid more attention. I should have tried harder.
You already did everything you could. Everything you had to do. When I was out there, alone, all I had was your training and the lessons you taught me. And because of you, I did survive. And not only that, I was able to lead others to survive as well.
I don't know what to say.
I do. Thank you, Master.
You're welcome, my Padawan.
Love the ending.
That was
so
my
much.
favorite moment in the episode. Because I was just like,
It was cute.
He did the right
He was
thing.
happy.
Yeah.
He was like, I feel like in that moment he was like, okay, Anakin is like he's beginning to go down a good path.
Mm-hmm.
Little does he know.
Yeah, because Ahsoka's like, I'm not just an extension of you anymore. Like, I'm my own person now.
And Yoda's like, yes, you guys can both learn from this, and Anakin, you can let go of Ahsoka, like you can let go of your attachments, and you can like grow as a person. Like everything's going good. Let's finish the war.
Yeah, it's a hopeful moment.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that with this episode, and it's like on many different levels, we know what the outcome is going to be. It's like I knew that Ahsoka was going to leave.
Yeah.
We knew that, and we also know that like things aren't going to go good.
Jessica, do you think that Anakin's reaction to, like, do you think Anakin is, like, being genuine, like, at the end, like, in terms of, like, his emotional state? Because, like, he goes from, like, feeling shame and, you know, being depressed and feeling helpless to, like, you know, acknowledging Ahsoka's strengths. But, like, and we take that as a sign that maybe he's grown a little, but do you think
that
that's
was a good moment for him, like, genuinely, and, like, it kind of opened up his heart a little bit. But I think that, like, it just goes to show, I mean, Ahsoka had to give, like, a whole, like, soliloquy and some, like, weird-ass voice about, like, Master, you're the best, like, you're amazing, I would be nothing without you, and, like, there's kind of, like, a lot of emotional labor that needs to be performed to, like, get Anakin to, like, not be, like, weird and angsty. Mm-hmm. But I do think it, like, worked. He was his version of happy.
Yeah, I think
or satisfied.
I think I can agree with that. Keats, your thoughts?
I mean, I thought it was like a perfect Ahsoka Anakin moment. I don't think there was a single piece of it that felt like fabricated or anything. Like, I think all the emotions were genuine. I think that Ahsoka felt like a little bit overwhelmed just by looking at the broad spectrum of things and how their relationship has played out over the year. I imagine it's been like about a year at this point. I just love the fact that Yoda's, because like we kept talking about how Yoda's whole lesson in this was like messed up because he's like terrible with attachment. So how is this even going to help him by giving him more attachment? But it really proves like how wise he is, and
yeah, like he knows Anakin's limits and he knows what Ahsoka can give him.
Yeah, and I just thought it was,
or at least he thinks he knows Anakin's limits.
I just thought it was a really beautiful moment because I hadn't seen this episode before ever. So this is definitely going to be a moment I remember in the future of my entire life. And I don't mean that sarcastically. I mean, I like this moment a lot.
Well, that just about wraps it up. Next week, we will be talking about Season 4, Episode 1, Water War, Season 4, Episode 2, Gungan Attack, and Season 4, Episode 3, Prisoners. Let's talk about Admiral Akbar.
He's a character. He doesn't do anything. I mean, he's like...
We have to talk about his cool little pen gun. Where's Radis?
Where's Radis? The answer is he wasn't invented yet. But he's around somewhere. Presumably, he may have been in this battle.
And there's like a really violent shot of his like severed head.
Yeah, that
like
was
a broken
pretty cool.
jaw. Like,
honestly,
floating.
that might have been the coolest thing in the whole arc was just his exploded head. This has been Yates.
Jessica.
Keats.
May the Force be with you.